Hello, welcome to the FanDuel Punch Out. I'm Big Italy 42. He is Josh Shepardson at BChad50, and happy Memorial Day to you. There's a interesting slate here. We've got 10 games early, 5 games late. Last night it kind of looked like all the games were just early only, and the prize pools were kind of strange, but everything fixed this morning. Seems all fine and well and ready to go. But we're going to be talking about tonight's slate, obviously, so we have this up longer for you, help you get yourself some information. Obviously, morning slate starting at 1 o'clock here. And tonight's slate is only 5 games, but there's a couple options you actually feel okay about at pitcher. One in particular that we'll get into here in a minute, and one total in particular you're going to want to get yourself some exposure to. So not a ton of options on tonight's slate, but the ones that are good are really good.
Yeah, and I can tell you from building the cash games lineup before the show, Justin and you're building an all-star team. At least all-stars relative to what else is available today. You're going to be able to get pretty much whatever you want on your lineups, which for GPPs means you're going to be able to do some weird things like leave a lot of money on the table to differentiate yourself from other rosters. But that pitcher that Justin alluded to is Tyson Ross, gets the Angels. Angels are bad against right-handed pitching. They don't walk a lot, which is really good for Tyson Ross because he does have some control issues on occasion, bouts of wildness. But if they're not going to earn walks, then Tyson Ross is looking even better than he already does. Big strikeout rate from him, and soft matchup. He is a slight underdog, but I'll take my chances with Ross on the road against a bad offense, and his strikeout ability is going to help offset the possibility of a no decision or a loss. So I really like Ross tonight. There's only 2 other names that I'm really looking at. Jake Odorizzi, more likely to get the win, at least in the eyes of the odds makers. He's at home. He gets a Mariners offense that has been scuffling against right-handed pitchers out of the gate. Odorizzi's strikeout rate is down from last year, but he's also really shaved his walk rate, shaved it in half. Inducing more ground balls. Still not a ground ball pitcher, but it's over 40% this year compared to under 30% last year. So less susceptible to the long ball, really killing a good start. And his swinging strike rate indicates we might see some more punch-outs here at some point. So I like Odorizzi as my number 2. And then the only other pitcher that I would consider using here, $6,700 Brett Anderson, gets a Braves offense that is in the bottom 5 in WRC plus against lefties. His velocity's up this month. His slider swinging strike rate is up this month. The only knock on Anderson that I really have is that he isn't going deep into games. He's only pitching between 5 and 6 innings so far. I don't know if that's because the Dodgers are handling him with kid gloves because he's coming off of an injury-shortened season or not. But you'd like to see more innings from him. All things considered, $6,700 is super cheap for a guy that's as big of a betting favorite as he is.
Yeah, low risk, medium reward type of guy there. And like you mentioned with Tyson Ross, I mean, you're looking for strikeouts on a short slate like this, and 26.7% strikeout rate, by far the highest. 13.1% swing and strike rate. I mean, that's in Clayton Kershaw territory up there. I mean, that's elite. 65% ground ball rate too. So I think we're both in agreement here that if you're playing one pitcher and that's what you have on FanDuel, it's going to be Tyson Ross in your cash games, and there's really no reason to overthink that one.
Yeah, fun fact about today. The top 3 pitchers in ground ball rate are all throwing. Brett Anderson leads the league, Tyson Ross second, and Dallas Keuchel on the early slate is third. So the 3 top ground ball pitchers are on the mound today.
Yeah, Keuchel needs to get it together because if he wants to defend his crown, he needs to get up. I think he's, 1% behind? I think
something like that, yeah.
He might be all right when all's said and done by tonight. So we'll check back on that tomorrow. With that being said, moving on here to catcher. I guess we'll mention as far as pitchers go, if you're looking for tournament options, there is one guy I would consider to be Roenis Elias at $7,200. He does have some strikeout upside, as we know. Not Baltimore, Tampa Bay, not a great offense, obviously. They do hit lefties better than they hit righties, but they also strike out a ton against lefties. So I think he would be my tournament swerve if I'm going to go down cheaper.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, again, it comes down to the strikeouts. You can't feel super comfortable using him because they do hit lefties hard, but that's the whole point of grabbing a guy like him is that low ownership, the fact that you've got the strikeout upside, and if he can avoid the long ball or you know the bases clearing double, then you've got yourself a nice start, and you've got yourself a low owned nice start where others are going to be on the obvious options like Ross and Odorizzi and Anderson.
Yeah, and like you said, got to get creative on a 5-game slate. That's certainly one way to do it since you only have one pitcher spot. As we move on to catcher, I'm glad to only have one catcher spot, and there's really only one catcher I want to use tonight. And I know you're in agreement there. Russell Martin, $3,300 against the awful Hector Noesi. No faith in him. Obviously, in Rogers Center, you expect Toronto to put up a big number on him, and you could maybe see Russell Martin batting right around cleanup tonight with Jose Bautista expected to be out.
Yeah, I mean, it's Russell Martin or punt here. There are no other options. Noesi is terrible against right-handed batters, so that plays into Martin's hands. And the fact is, Martin does not have a pronounced platoon split over recent seasons, so he is an above-average hitter against right-handed pitchers, so you also have that going for you. And there really are no other options. The other guys are going to be down-order hitters, or they're going to be in unfavorable matchups. So it's Russell Martin or maybe look for a punt, but you don't really need to save salary. So I'm going to say it's 100% Russell Martin, and I'm not doing anything else.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. The only way I'm going to be swerving is going to be in tournaments. I'll see who gets a nice lineup spot. Maybe if you see Derek Norris up second, he usually bats second only against lefties, though, so that's unlikely. But if we see someone in a nice spot, certainly moving off Russell Martin is going to be a nice, maybe not a beneficial way to go in tournaments, but certainly going to get yourself low ownership.
Yep.
All right, moving on to first base. Price considered, it's got to be Jose Abreu as the number one play. $3,200. He finally got off the home run skid, hit a home run, and FanDuel rewarded us all with a price decrease. So he's now down to $3,200 and gets the highest total of the night. Like I guess we should have mentioned, it's a 9-run total there. White Sox and Toronto, no other game over 7.5. So this is the game that you want to get yourself a lot of exposure to. Big bat here. Drew Hutchison, a guy that has a ERA north of 6 this year, so he's very, very beatable. And Jose Abreu at that price, I mean, it's a no-brainer for me, especially in cash games.
Yeah, I mean, he is easily the top play at first base. There are a few other options if you want to get some separation from the pack. Edwin Encarnacion's $4,200. You're going to have the money. Again, get that exposure to the Rogers Center and that high total, and get the guy that's probably going to be slightly lower owned because he is $1,000 more than Abreu. You can grab Adrian Gonzalez against Williams Perez. It's a lefty-righty matchup, so that plays into Gonzalez's hands. I would figure that the Dodgers might be low-owned because of their recent run of ineptitude, but this is still the best offense in baseball against right-handed pitching this year, so I'm going to cut them some slack and figure that the numbers are going to even themselves out at some point. And then Adam LaRoche, $2,800. We know that Drew Hutchinson is really bad against left-handed batters, so I don't have a problem getting LaRoche against Hutch and then and hoping for some fireworks. And then there's a cheap name that you'd like to point out, and I'll let you do that. But I will say that from a matchup perspective, I like this call a lot that you're going to make.
Yep, I also love his first name a lot. One of the better ones I've heard. Justin Bohr at $2,400 against Charlie Morton. Fresh off his injury, making his first start. As you mentioned, we were talking before the podcast that Charlie Morton much better against righties than lefties. Obviously, Bohr a lefty. Been batting right in the heart of that Marlins order, and not a particularly strong Marlins lineup right now, but if you can get yourself a cheap punt there, you can pretty much load up every other position if you punt one place tonight with the prices of these pitchers. So I think if I'm going to go cheap in a tournament, he's going to be my swerve play.
Yeah, and I agree with that, and I think that's a good call.
All right, let's go ahead and move on here to second, where Mr. D. Gordon, the speedster himself, $3,700. You hope maybe he steals 4 bases for you tonight. Probably pretty unlikely, but we know he has that type of upside, and I mean, that's where his upside lies, that and gap hits that he turns into doubles and triples. He isn't hitting particularly well right now, but as you know, he's a terror on the base paths when he gets on, so Charlie Morton, not a guy that strikes a fear in the heart of anyone, even anyone the size of D. Gordon, so I think he'll be all right. He's going to be your cash game play because he does have that high floor with the stolen bases, and then I'll throw out one more name that I know there's a couple guys you want to talk about. Howie Kendrick, you're obviously considering him, like we already mentioned. Williams Perez, very beatable. Obviously, righty-righty matchup, but Kendrick hits the righties pretty well, and we do expect the Dodgers to score a nice amount of runs tonight as well.
Yeah, the only other names that I will add to that mix are Neil Walker, switch hitter, gets to hit left-handed against right-handed David Phelps, $2,700, nice price point. And then if you want to go down that road again, we've seen Robbie Cano do things in his life that involve hitting baseballs hard. We haven't seen those things this year.
I just don't remember that.
But eventually, we do expect that Robbie Cano, unless he decides that he's going Brett Booning and falling off the face of the planet, which, I mean, it is Seattle, so maybe there's something in the water. But I I don't know. He's got to turn it around at some point. I'm probably not rostering him tonight because I do like some of the other options more. But lefty versus right-handed Jake Odorizzi, we know his track record of success. And again, hitting third, he's not getting moved out of that lineup spot by Lloyd McClendon. So $2,700, probably as cheap as you're ever going to see Robbie Cano, unless he just continues to scuffle for the duration of the entire season.
Yeah, I mean, and like you said, due to recency bias, he should be pretty low owns. You can include myself in that. I don't know how recent it is. It's probably been about a month now that he's been just killing my teams where he's just in great spots. And this is a fine spot for him. Not an ideal spot, but you got to think he gets it going at some point. But I'm not willing to take that risk on a 5-game slate, though. So you can enjoy your Robinson Cano. I don't think he's a bad play, but I just have no faith in him right now. All right, as we move on to third base, you got a guy that you love. I agree. Who you got at top at third base?
Well, I'm going to pencil him into all of my lineups, cash games and GPPs. For $3,400, I'm going to roster Evan Longoria against lefty Roenis Elias. Longoria ranks in the top 15 in WOBA, WRC Plus, and ISO against left-handed pitching since 2012. I mean, he is a beast against lefties. No, Tropicana Field isn't exactly a hitter's paradise, but when Evan Longoria gets a lefty, I pay attention. He's typically priced low, as he is now. $3,400, nice price point. He is having a pretty solid season. Not hitting for as much power as he has in his peak seasons, but he is hitting the ball. He's putting it in play. He's getting on base. He's doing what you need him to do, and he's still in the heart of that order. So it's Evan Longoria or bust for me tonight.
Yeah, I mean, there's other options. Obviously, Josh Donaldson has big upside. You feel safer about Longoria, though, of course. Donaldson in a fine matchup, but I'm not willing to pay more for him outside of a tournament. As you're looking down cheaper, there's really not much at all. I mean, Josh Harrison's guy's been hitting a lot of doubles, not doing a whole lot else. Big ballpark there. David Phelps hasn't allowed a home run yet, so you're obviously not chasing that with him. If you're really going to go cheap here, I mean, I don't even know where I would go, to be honest with you. I don't think I will be going cheap. It's probably going to be the Russell Martin effect here, and I'm just going to be getting Evan Longoria because it doesn't matter what you do at every other position. You can afford Evan Longoria with ease tonight.
Exactly.
All right. As we move on to shortstop, surprisingly, more options at short than there are at third base today. Still none that you feel great. No slam dunk plays, but a lot of guys that you feel are in play. Jimmy Rollins, we mentioned. Obviously, the Dodgers should score runs. He's not that good, but if he gets on base, he should score some runs. Then you're looking at some other options. Andrelton Simmons is a guy I like to play. He's been bumped down the order. Probably going to be batting 6th or 7th again. I'm not exactly sure why. He's still having a pretty fine season, but $2,400, I think, is a fine spot for him there. And who else are you looking at here at short?
Gung Ho Kang, most expensive, healthy shortstop. We're not going to include Jose Reyes since you can't play. I mean, you can play him. If you'd like to play him, I will be probably setting up some head-to-heads. You're welcome to play him against me. Might as well throw Yasiel Puig on that team as well, just for good measure. But beyond Kang, I'm looking at Eric Ibar leading off if I'm not using Tyson Ross. There's some interesting, probably low-owned exposure because he is facing Tyson Ross. So maybe it's really a GPP-only play for me, and it would be on a roster where you have Elias or Brett Anderson or perhaps Odorizzi, but otherwise, maybe get some exposure to the Rogers Center with Alexi Ramirez, $2,500. Good price point, good ballpark, and a couple of pitchers that are really struggling, so you're expecting some fireworks there. But honestly, that's a half dozen names that are viable at shortstop, and you don't usually get that. And, of course, we're getting it on a 5-game slate, so go figure.
Yeah, of course. So doesn't do you a whole lot of good today. Maybe mix him in, but I think I'm just going to find whichever guy is in the best lineup spot and then roll with him out of that mix. Next up's the outfield. Obviously, if you're not playing Tyson Ross, Mike Trout always in play. You and I were still just in awe of that slide. If you haven't seen it, Google that slide because it was one of the most ridiculous plays I've ever seen. I mean, I cannot imagine having that type of body control, but Mike Trout can do everything, as you know, including hitting Tyson Ross. So if there's anyone you're worried about in that lineup, it's obviously Mike Trout. Pay for him in your tournaments if you're not playing Ross. We were talking earlier about how Jose Bautista not expected to play today, so keep an eye on that. Check out that Blue Jays lineup. Definitely should be some mix-ups. And then we were also talking Nelson Cruz versus Giancarlo Stanton. I think we're both in agreement here that Nelson Cruz is going to be the guy that you want out of these two, right?
Yeah, I mean, uh, Chuck Morton is. Sorry, Charlie. I'm just gonna keep calling him Chuck because I like it. It's really tough on right-handed batters, and I mean Stanton's not your average right-handed batter, but Morton does a really good job of keeping the ball on the ground. When you're paying for Stanton, you're paying for Homer. So if he's hitting these scalding shots through the infield, you're not getting your dingers. Whereas at least with Cruz, you're facing a pitcher who, yes, he's improved his ground ball rate, but Jake Odorizzi still has fly ball tendencies. So I mean, you got multi-hit upside, you got doubles, homers upside. There's just more there with Cruz, more upside for multiple hits and things of that nature. And I just think that he's a slightly better play than Cruz. And the fact that he's $400 more expensive might mean that he's a little bit lower owned because maybe you have to juggle a little bit of money around to budget for him, and others won't be willing to do that. It's like, oh, I can just get Stanton. Well, I'll just get Stanton then, and I mean, do I think everybody's going to do that? No, but I can certainly think of some instances where I've been torn between guys, and I haven't wanted to make that budgeting cut. And when that happens, you get a slightly lower owned Nelson Cruz, and you reap the rewards when he hits.
Yeah, and plus, more often than not, if it was a bigger slate, you see Giancarlo Stanton at $4,300. You don't care that he's in PNC Park. You say click, and you get Giancarlo Stanton. But with some other options for those reasons that you said, I think that he's going to be a fairly popular play, and that's a pretty damn big ballpark. I don't know if you've been there or seen it, but it's not easy to hit one into the seats there in Pittsburgh. So I like Andrew McCutchen. He's really been heating up. 3 home runs in his last 4 games and 2 doubles during that span as well. Looks like he has 9 hits in his last 4 games as well, a couple walks. Now facing a pitcher who hasn't given up a home run this year. If I got to bet on someone to hit a home run in this game, it's going to be Andrew McCutchen, because we know once he gets it going, the guy can crush anyone. You know you prefer him against lefties, but David Phelps isn't striking fear in anyone's hearts here either.
No, and then I think another outfielder that's going to be very popular today, and it goes beyond just chasing his 6 stakes from yesterday, but Justin Upton, $4,000, really reasonable price tag. I mean, good luck to Jared Weaver getting his 81-mile-an-hour fastball or whatever it's clocking these days by Justin Upton. I think he's going to be a popular play, but a popular play for good reason. I love Jock Peterson at $3,700. I'm going to be starting many of my outfields with him. Yes, he does have a propensity for striking out. He also walks a lot, and he shows big power, so I like him quite a bit. And then the bargain bin is not very it's a little light. I mean, it's not anything that I'm exceptionally excited about. Gregory Polanco's dropped in the lineup, so he's not as exciting as he once was, but $2,900, not a terrible price point. If you're not using Ross, Cole Calhoun hitting cleanup $29, pretty decent price point. And then you got Eaton for cheap exposure to the Rogers Center game if you're looking for that. Chris Colabello has above average power, and we know that Hector Noesi struggles with right-handed batters, so I like some Colabello as a righty thump there at the Rogers Center. And then Christian Yelich is a guy that I think is probably the most interesting cheap play. $2,400 against Charlie Morton, or as I like to call him, Chuck. Get that left-handed bat against a guy who struggles with lefties. And then, I mean, if that 81-mile-an-hour fastball is not going to get by Justin Upton, it's probably not getting by $2,300 Matt Kemp either.
Yeah, I mean, Matt Kemp being at $2,300 is insanity. I mean, he's not hitting particularly well, but did have 2 hits yesterday. And, I mean, we talked about this a couple days ago. You're not finding a higher ceiling for a guy than Justin Upton around his current price point. So, I mean, $2,300, it almost makes sense to just go ahead and lock him and Upton in your cash games because they're going to be pretty popular. And, I mean, that's a pretty cheap duo for the type of upside they have in this matchup.
Yeah, $6,300 to roster the two of them. That's quite nice.
Absolutely. I'm going to throw out a couple more guys here. Kevin Pillar should be batting around 5th. He's min salary. And then, once again, as you know, you got your risk for him getting platooned out, but Seth Smith against a righty, min salary, $2,200. There's your daily reminder if you need a $2,200 guy. Just find yourself an extra 100 and get Matt Kemp. But, you know, you could certainly consider Seth Smith as well.
Definitely.
All right, with that being said, good luck today. Find us on Twitter at DF Cafe. Check out all of our great content. We have all day slate covered here in our content at dailyfantasycafe.com. And we will see you guys again tomorrow.